One more corpse to decorate my home!
Legend of Keepers is an interesting concept that cherry-picks ideas from other games and blends them in a very particular sort of dungeon mastering experience. Once you get over the fact that it's obviously missing at least one definite article somewhere in the title. It takes the dungeon building and outfitting concept from Dungeon Keeper, or Dungeons if that's a closer reference, and blends it with the current trend of roguelike procedurally generated turn-based dungeon crawlers. With the important difference being that you're not doing any actual dungeon crawling. You're in charge of setting up the dungeon obstacles. You don't even build the dungeon layout is given to you. You literally have to outfit it with mobs and traps. In essence, Legend of Keepers is like Iratus, Lord of the Dead, crossed with a management game. The management part of the game is built around a seemingly RNG chain of multiple choice events from which you have to choose one at each prompt. So not only do you not crawl the dungeon, but you don't go seeking the random events either. They come to you. You are literally in a manager / supervisor / end boss role and mainly have to deal with making decisions related to resource and monster management. Only a very small amount of your time will be dedicated to the usual dungeon crawler fare, namely fighting heroes. Talking about the heroes, in this case your enemies. The heroes are fairly OP, especially when compared to your very expendable employees, but this is in tune with the traditional approach of party-based dungeon crawlers. When you stop to think about it objectively, your party of heroes is fairly overpowered when compared with level-appropriate mobs. Whether it's because of the use of abilities and spells that the monsters do not have, or indeed the use of potions that the monsters can't use, regardless of how undergeared you think you are, by simple virtue of you being the protagonist means that you are OP. If groups of mobs would be endowed with a certain level of AI and resources similar to the player characters, then dungeon crawlers would make for a much more tense sort of experience. That sounds like a great idea that someone should work on implementing, like a more hardcore, challenging sort of dungeon crawler experience. Of course, I don't know how much memory or processing power that sort of close to human-like-ish AI would require, but I'm just saying it would be really cool to have a more serious challenge in dungeon crawlers as opposed to the usual stuff. So get used to getting most or even all of your monsters killed and only the end boss, yourself, being capable of finishing off the party of heroes. In fact, as the game advances in time, the adventurers get tougher and tougher and your entire strategy focuses on doing your best to thin them out or debuff them as much as possible before they reach the end boss. So what's actual combat like besides turn-based? It is fairly simplistic. Your monsters don't have a large roster of abilities like in Iratus for instance, but then again, combat isn't the focus of Legend of Keepers as it is in Iratus. They do have a diverse blend of active and passive abilities, as well as ones that will only target particular positions in the enemy group. Your monster positioning is also relevant because the hero's abilities likewise affect particular position within your group of monsters. There are two different morale type mechanics in the game. One applies to the human heroes. They can be scared out of your dungeon, and this will result in you gaining tears, one of the 3 resources you'll be working with. And the other applies to your monsters and is linked to how many times they die and are resurrected. See, your monsters get resurrected after each dungeon run, but they're not super stoked about dying in the first place, so they lose some motivation points which have to be replenished by allowing them to sit out some runs or through various random events that show up every now and then. You can, of course, upgrade your monsters through likewise occasional events, but these will cost you money, the second of the resources. However, it is always a good idea to upgrade your monsters since it not only makes them generally stronger, but in some situations it adds an ability to them. The attack animations are really nice and dynamic. Again, I am a big mark for pixel art, but unfortunately you won't get to see them very often because generally you won't get to use them twice during the same encounter. Your monsters get killed progressively faster as you advance. Now, I said that combat is fairly simplistic, and that's true, but the tactical choices that you have to make before combat actually starts are a bit more complex than you'd think at first sight. There are several things you'll want to take into consideration when setting up a dungeon, and the game offers you all the information you need in order to make as informed a decision as you can. You need to start by looking at the layout of the dungeon and the order of the rooms, where your monsters will be located in relation to the traps and the other special event rooms. This will influence your trap choices especially. You get to see the stats and abilities of the heroes that will be venturing through your dungeon. After you look through them, all you have to do is customize your monster layout in both of the rooms in whichever way you wish to deal with the heroes. Either try to kill them or scare them out of your dungeon. As mentioned earlier, scaring them out of the dungeon will result in tears, while killing them will result in blood. Both of these are resources you will use during the rest of the game to pay for a variety of things, besides the universal gold coins. There is also a type of meta progression in the game, in the sense that you will gain levels the longer you manage your dungeons and can invest in some talent trees that offer some minor improvements to various aspects of your stats. You can also unlock different managers/end bosses once you reach level 10. As it stands now, the game already has a decent amount of content to keep you entertained, and going forward toward final release, I expect we'll see some changes to the manager skill trees, as well as maybe some rebalancing to the overall combat mechanics, because I feel the heroes are a little bit too OP, especially the veterans. Or simply, I haven't played it for long enough in order to improve my manager. See, the progress saves over from game to game, so that does matter. The prologue of the game is available for free on Steam, so if anything you've seen and heard during the video got your interest up, go play that and decide for yourself. Hey there, dear watcher who's still watching, thank you very much for sticking around. I've recently started a Patreon page, so if you want and can throw a couple of bucks my way to help me get more games, go on there and check out the tiers and rewards. I've been Steven Nonsense, thank you very much for watching, see you next time and have a great rest of the day.